Okay, in this episode, we are going to discuss our computing roots. We are going to share some experiences of owning and using our first computers, like Amstrad CPC 464 for me, and Spectrum for you, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And how those started our journey towards, let's say, computers and computer science. We are going to take you back in time, describe how we got to know computers, and some details about how it was back in the days when we were much younger. Stuff like limited processing power, super limited sound cards, and the necessary level of creativity that went along with that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the evolution of gaming from our perspective and how it came to be to what it is now. But we are going to kind of focus on our, let's say, childhood part of that from 80s onwards as a starting point and finish right about the time when gaming became super popular. This episode basically describes our personal journeys to the world of computers by what we refer to as two adult kids, but still kids. And we kind of loved every single moment of that, and we want to take you on that journey with us. So, welcome to That IT Show, where basically talk meets tech and vice versa. Let's roll the intro. Somebody's singing today. What the hell's going on? What's wrong with you?
I need to fill the noise between the intro and the moment that my old 8088 PC is not booting.
You wanted to say that you need to fill the void, not the noise, right?
The noise. Do you remember the noise of old computers?
Yes.
No. Your first computer. Do you remember the smell and the noise of the first computer?
I do.
Yes.
My Amstrad. Yes, I do.
Yes, everybody does. And this is one of the things that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to surprise you with this. Because when we are talking about something that is dear to us, we usually also remember other senses. So we remember the
olfactory
smells.
senses are
So we remember the smells, we remember the touches, we remember how the texture of everything else around your computer was doing. So when you were playing on your carpet, probably, with your Amstrad near the TV because you needed to use the TV.
No, I had a monitor.
Okay, but your first computer also had a monitor.
Yes,
from the start.
CPC 464 had a monitor.
Okay.
Green one.
Oh, okay. I think you would turn out better if you used the TV. But anyways.
I love the condescension that you just showed. I love it.
Yes, so my first Spectrum was, of course, connected directly to the TV through the...
Composite or something else?
RF.
Oh, geez.
So
okay.
Channel 36, if I remember correctly, there was even a standard for the channels that you had to use on your PC, on your monitor. But I'm going to digress a lot today. But
it's called tangents.
Yes, so I'm going to be tangential to everything that we do today.
So you're going to troll me, basically. That's what you're saying.
No, you're just going to try to put me back into my on my path to enlightenment and to try to explain what was happening, and I'm going to completely, basically sidestep you. So, anyways,
never ever going to happen.
My first Spectrum was
which one?
ZX. So
okay.
ZX somewhere in 1982, I think, if I remember correctly. It could be 82 or 83.
Okay.
It got smuggled from United Kingdom because back in the days here in what was formerly Yugoslavia and now is Croatia.
Croatia is not former Yugoslavia.
No. What was
part of it?
No, what was former Yugoslavia now is Croatia because where we're living, we just went through a lot of different countries, different ways of living in the last 40 years or so. So basically, computers were hard to come by.
Correct.
You had to either smuggle them or buy them pretty expensive, if I remember. I think that my Spectrum was something like 3 or 4 times the price it was in the UK. and it came with amazing assembly of periphery. So it had a cable to connect to the tape, so tape recorder,
Oh, yes.
and it had a light pen.
Okay.
I had a light pen that never worked.
You lucky bastard.
Yes, but this light pen was basically just intended to work with one program for that was supposed to be Paint, and the way it worked is it tried to it had a photodiode and it was trying to discern different colors on the screen. And remember, this is a TV screen, so it didn't have any calibration of the screen. So it was trying to see what were the different colors and try to guess what it was looking at. So the way it worked is that you had to turn on the Spectrum, wait for 5 minutes for the program to load up, start it, and then take your pen directly to the TV screen and then move it across the screen to see what is going to happen. And usually nothing.
It looks like you're describing TFT calibration of old synthesizers, by the way, for me.
Yes, this is one thing. And the other thing that I had, I wouldn't call it, okay, let's call it portable TV. It wasn't a monitor. It was a Kekets. If you remember from Israel, yes. So it had a huge handle for it to be lugged around. It wasn't in color, so it was black and white.
I had the same one.
Yes, and I was using it a lot because I was taking my Spectrum with me when I went to over the summer when I had to go with my parents and spend the summer
by force.
No, I wasn't forced. I just couldn't be left behind. So,
yes.
So
I had the same thing, and I remember watching Tour de France, my first Tour de France on that TV, and when I had some problems with my kidneys. And also, I remember watching something that I'm reluctant to say out loud, but I was watching Schwarzwald Clinic on it.
Okay.
Back in the day, it was very popular.
Yes, back in the day, if you had a portable TV, it was a thing to.
Yes, you were the man.
Okay, you were a guy who had the portable TV. That
Black and white, but
yes, but you had if you were a kid, you had to get your parents with you because the TV itself was something like 10 kilos or so. So you had to have somebody else to take it with you. But okay, so this was my first computer. After this,
wait a second.
Just give me a second. I'm just going to go through the 80s. So straight after the Spectrum, I went over I didn't use the C64 because after the Universiada that was in 87. I got lucky and I got one of the XT clones that they were using to input the data in the Universiada. So because they had a couple of thousand of them.
Now I'm starting to get the picture of why you are such a hoarder as you are.
So I got something that was called the Hero XT, and it was a modular PC. I'm going to try to find an image or a specification for it. Basically, the power unit, the CPU, the storage, and the floppy were modular. You could sort of get them together in different combinations and get a computer that was barely running because it was an XT. But I got my first steps in the enterprise world, running Word, whatever, 1 or 2.
09 beta.
Yes, basically on a green screen that was awful, on a computer that is intended to be running just basically a data input from a single floppy, and it had a 360K single floppy, single side.
Okay.
So that was it.
Okay. Is it my turn now?
Yes.
Okay, my journey starts a couple of years after you because you are, let's say, a couple of years more mature than me, at least on a piece of paper.
I won't call it mature, older.
No, I know why I said it. My family bought an Amstrad for my brother and me in, I think it was 1984. That computer was super popular in Europe, actually. I mean, you can't compare that to C64 and some of the incarnations of Spectrum as well. But still, more from the stats that I was able to find, more than 2 million units of that were sold.
Yes.
And it had actually 3 versions, 2 after that, 664 and 6128. I never had a chance to work on those computers, which I would love to do, at least to play a little bit. So I was 5th grade when I got to that computer. And I distinctly remember everything that you mentioned, you sly man. about the smell, the tactile feeling, the feeling of rejuvenation or youthful exuberance when I got to the computer and everything else. That not only got me into computers, at least a little bit of it, a little bit of getting into it. It also got me into programming.
I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but
Okay.
yes.
So because Amstrad had BASIC, and I remember that when I was in sixth grade, I started writing my first program in BASIC, which was about calculating the average of my grades.
Okay.
Which was a cool project for a kid that didn't have any experience in programming, which that also just started using computers, and on top of it didn't have any documentation, because back in the day documentation was, let's say, difficult. Although old computers used to come with the books for programming as well.
Yes,
and I had that, but for some reason or other, I didn't use it. I don't know why. Maybe somebody misplaced it or something. I really can't remember. Okay.
It could be that you weren't speaking English as well back way then, and the book was in English.
No, it wasn't a problem, because I started learning English in third or fourth grade, and languages were somewhat of a forte for me, English and French back in the day. So it definitely wasn't English problem.
Because I was too young. I got my Spectrum in third grade or so, and I didn't know English back then.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Yes.
But I got mine 2 or 3 years into learning the language.
Okay.
So that's the difference. I remember from that era, actually, my best friend, who I'm also a good friend still to this day, had a C64, and we never played that one. Never, ever, ever, single time. We did play those, video games, like small ones, but never played C64. And the other friend that I had, one more friend that had a computer, actually. I'm kind of like slicing my past through the lens of people who had computers. Most of them didn't. Another one had Atari 520 STFM. I have at least one of those at home. And I think 1040 as well.
I think I have one of those. I think I have 1020. It's not
1040. 1040,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think I have 520 and 1040 or 2 1040s. I don't remember.
Okay.
I have to check. I played that computer exactly once in my life. And after that...
it was basically, let me guess, it was a MIDI controller.
No, not then. Because back then I didn't have synthesizer and I wasn't playing with that. That came later, actually, or on a correct path. So you guessed right. Because when I was in high school, I met a person who became my editor-in-chief in the Future magazine that I worked for.
Okay.
In his studio, he said he had an Atari. That was my introduction to MIDI in practice, while I was already reading about it for years in our computer magazines. Yes. If you remember, the translation of Byte magazine, at the end of the magazine had always had like a part of it which was written by Željko Janda, who is... still to this very day, one of the connoisseurs of MIDI. I remember reading that like religiously, every single issue that I could buy, because those things were also very expensive back then.
Yes, but all the computing was expensive.
It was.
I'm going to start with one thing. I had to learn programming. By I had, I mean basically what happened to me is that when I got my PC, my Spectrum, my tape recorder broke. And I didn't, for the first couple of weeks, I didn't have a tape. So I wasn't able to load anything into the Spectrum.
You weren't able to do anything, so therefore you started programming.
Yes, so I had to use the original documentation, because Spectrum was delivered with a pretty hefty book that contained a lot of different examples. I wasn't so sure in my English, but I could basically copy paste from the documentation, and I was able to do something. So I had to experiment, even though I didn't know what I was doing. So peeking, poking, circles, creating pixels, doing random functions, and so on. Because this is part of the programming in Spectrum. Because we need to remind people that Spectrum was a little bit different than other computers, even today, but even back then, because it had integrated BASIC, and it basic had you didn't need to type the keywords. Keywords were directly connected to the keys. So in order to, for example, to type in print, you just press P.
the key. Yes,
press P,
I remember.
and that was it. So you got the basic would bind it to different keys.
Colorful keyboard.
Colorful keyboard.
And gummy keys.
And basically rubbery, completely useless keyboard for
No,
anything.
I loved it. I never had it. I wanted to add this to your story. My cousin had it. And I played it once or twice when we.
I was this close to bringing it together because, tonight because I actually have it still.
You do know that we have a
yes.
128 in the office.
Yes, but this was the original 48 ZX that had the creamy keyboard. The basically it's completely worn out. There is a piece of tin over the keyboard that is keeping it together. The keyboard is membrane based, so it. I think I changed it twice or three times.
You know, the only game that I ever played on Spectrum was Pac-Man. Nothing else. I distinctly remember playing.
I remember playing a lot of games because back way then my neighbor had Spectrum 16, I think. There was a cheaper version of the Spectrum, and he had something called Horace Goes Skiing or something like this. Basically, one of those top-down scrollers when you had to use left and right to avoid something, and we were playing this for days.
Okay, going back to the original story that I was saying, in terms of gaming, my first gaming was on my Amstrad, on our Amstrad. And I distinctly remember some of the games playing because, you know, when you're a kid, you don't have all that much stuff in memory. You're learning slowly. But you tend to remember those things for a very long time because those were your initial memories. So I remember playing games like Jet Set Willy, very popular. Frostbite, I remember that one as well. Arkanoid, which was very popular on pretty much everything. And the original version of Prince of Persia was already on Amstrad.
Yes, back way then.
And the only other game that I really remember like playing heavily, Amstrad had a very good collection of winter games, and I had two, because it was per sport. And I played two of those, Hot Dog, like ski jumps, and Biathlon, with shooting at targets, etc. I spent God knows how many hours playing those games.
And it's amazing how we managed to actually spend enormous amount of hours playing games that today
super simple games
that today wouldn't even be considered games. They would be considered just things that are not even nice to look at.
Which brings me to my point about my gaming. A little bit early, but still, I want to say this out loud. You kind of got me into that 4K competition channel, YouTube something, which I find to be extremely impressive. You guys should check that because it's crazy. Just write down 4K
intro or 4K demo scene. And try to search for Amiga demo scene. Try to search for PC demo scene, and you're going to find an enormous amount of. I couldn't describe how good those things are. So
for specifically small piece of memory.
Yes, that there are amazing programmers that are able to cram enormous amount of graphics, enormous amount of talent and music into something that is basically 4K long.
Okay, so my point is this. Even at that very early age, I realized that for me, the gaming is not about the art of pictures and super high quality images and super high quality sound or whatnot. For me, it was the fun experience of gaming, which is still the same principle that takes me to this day. That's the reason why I like Switch. It's nowhere near close to other consoles in terms of graphics quality, but it's enormously fun.
All the good games are fun.
Yes.
Even those that look, I would call them
bad according to today's standards,
old or retro or whatever. Good games are fun.
Yes.
For example, there is a game called Hotline Miami for the PC that looks outdated from the moment it came out, and it still is a hit because it is fun to play. There is a lot of games out there that don't. Basically, they don't look good. They are not the best in the terms of graphics, but are more fun.
Very
than,
interesting. They are interesting.
Yes, they are drawing you in, and they are trying to make you part of the world that they are creating.
Correct.
So back way then, we had text adventures that had no graphics at all. Today, to have a game that doesn't have any graphics in it
It is impossible.
would be completely impossible.
Actually, these games that I just mentioned, so Jet Set Willy, Arkanoid, Frostbite, I cannot even begin to explain how simple they were in terms of graphics. I remember the another reason why I remember Jet Set Willy, apart from the obvious, because it's a super simple game which has like specific.
Yes.
It's about the background music, which was better than Moonlight
Yes,
Sonata.
and it was annoying as.
It was back then when you didn't know better.
Yes.
But
yes.
that actually leads me to one other side point that I wanted to make, actually. When I was thinking about this episode, I remembered all of these details because it's impossible to forget them. One of the points that I wanted to make, and I was heavily reminded of this by watching one of the Retro Bytes videos, YouTube channel, from a couple of weeks ago, that 4-voice super simple sound that old computers used to have. I agree, it was annoying.
Okay,
And a lot of computers used to just have beeps, not necessarily.
Spectrum had the only single voice.
Yeah, some of them had 4 voices.
Yes.
That was at that time that was considered to be wow.
I'm going to talk about music.
C64 was one of those.
Yes, but I'm going to talk about music a little bit later because I want to get into music because my first PC didn't have a music card, sound card at all.
Okay.
Probably not. Even you didn't have one either. And my first music card wasn't a music card. My first PC or my first 486 that I got as an actual PC that I was using somewhere in the 1993.
We are not done with the 80s, by the way.
Yes, we are not done with the 80s, but back way then, you could actually make your own audio card. I created, with the help of my friend, I created a parallel port, basically voltage divider. It's a resistive ladder. So you can actually create DA, digital to analog conversion, and had some sort of sound. It was terrible because you didn't have any power on the parallel port. It didn't have basically no bandwidth at all, but you could get some sound out of your computer.
Another insight into your rosy personality. And I'm not being metaphorical or sarcastic now. Again, you were a tinkerer since very young age.
Yes. I took the things apart.
Me too.
Yes.
Watches, calculators.
I didn't get them back together again a lot of times, but I took them apart.
Yes.
And this is one of the things that I still like doing, because I like to see how things are working.
Yeah,
thankfully, you can pretty much look everything up on the YouTube, so you don't need to take things apart. So I don't need to content with having to put things together and have them not working.
Okay, so at the end of the 80s, let's say right around the time of Universiada, which you just mentioned, I got my first PC.
Okay, so 87, 88.
Our parents bought us our first XT, which was Commodore's PC-10
Okay.
I remember every single computer that I ever had with distinct details about everything. And if I close my eyes, I can still operate that computer, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. So it was 8088 XT, 2 floppy drives, 525, and an enormously big 20 megabyte hard disk, which was at that time soldered on the controller board.
Okay.
The computer was heavy as hell. The monitor was even heavier, and it was an Amber monitor, which I'm sure you love.
Back way then, in the 1992 or 93, I had an Amber monitor, and I remember that one time I was doing something. I think I was playing Prince of Persia or something like this, and it could be something else because it was way back then. And I know that I spent something like probably 8 hours in front of the monitor. And then when I went to sleep, I was just saying good night to everybody.
Shadows.
No shadows, but everybody was looking pink because I was sitting in the darkened room. The only source of light was the amber monitor, and basically my colors shifted. So my vision was shifted by wavelength. So everybody looked pink, and I said to my father, "Why are you pink? Is everything okay?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Nothing.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm just going to sleep now."
Thank you for that. Actually, you kind of reminded me of something. That's the reason why I had very similar experience to this, but it was bricks. Yellow bricks, specifically.
Yes.
Amber monitor was
Yes.
yellowish, orangish, something like that. And I played a lot of these games where there were a lot of brick-like shapes.
Yes.
And when I closed my eyes, I saw a lot of those shapes. Very similar experience, and even with my eyes open as well.
Do you remember the Breakout?
Yes, I do.
Yes. It was one of the games that I was playing a lot.
Yeah.
Because the first,
Just like Arkanoid.
so my first graphic cards, my graphic card on PC was a Hercules,
Mine too.
and then I had a CGA for a brief moment. I'm so glad that I got rid of it.
I did not, but my friend did. He had a 286 with CGA graphics.
CGA is insane from any perspective if you think about it nowadays.
Yes.
Trying to create a graphic card that is going to have basically the most awful colors available to the human kind, and then try to make it work is, I don't know. I really don't know. I was expecting for the first card to be RGB. I wasn't expecting
At that time, you were
cyan
asking a lot.
Yes, but I wasn't expecting that cyan magenta is going to be even something that you are going to have to put up with, and then couple this with the extremely low resolution, the CGA.
And calibration of the monitor via dials, etc. Yeah, that was fun.
So this was something that was annoying.
Okay.
So this is my first. Basically, I went from Spectrum to the my Spectrum, then the XT, then 486.
Yeah, my path was very similar to that, but I wanted to share a couple of more stories about my Commodore, which I loved. I think my dad still has it somewhere in the basement. Like 5 or 6 years ago, he wanted to bring that one to me. I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with it? Because he still had it. I distinctly remember some of the key combinations that I used on that computer. I mean, I haven't used it for 30 years. It's been a while, you know. Control-Alt-S, Control-Alt-D, Control-Alt-T, switching from 477 to 716 and then to 9.54 megahertz speed.
Yes,
stuff like that.
This is the key. The key processor is something that is.
It's impossible to forget.
Yes. So basically, when you step in front of the terminal in the Linux, you don't remember how you switch. For example, in screen, you don't
Control
remember.
Alt D, Control Alt Space.
So Control A, Control A, Control A B, Control A C, and so basically you don't remember the key presses. You just do it.
Yeah, because you did it 100 billion times.
Yes, but you think about the action, and the action gets done.
Yeah.
It's
like psychic something.
Yes. So
yeah,
the interface is working. I cannot say that for the different newer programs, this is the same.
Agreed.
I'm going to just point out that a lot of things that I liked about old computing was the interfaces.
Agreed. Yet again.
Yes, because
they were clean and simple.
Yes, WordPerfect was basically perfect.
My favorite app.
Yes,
of all times, bar none.
I think that if they had LaTeX back then, and if they combined it with the WordPerfect way of editing and working with the LaTeX, I think this would probably be the standard today. I
had WordPerfect 5.2 on DOS. I spent gazillion years, everything from my high school thesis and many things later, I wrote on that. It's a fantastic application.
It's still alive. It still exists. But
just yesterday I told you that I'm going to buy WordPerfect 8 or something for fun reasons.
I'm just trying to ignore those things that you do for no reasonable reason at all.
Why do you need to have a reason?
Okay. There's that. But anyways,
640 kilobytes of RAM. That's very important for the
So
Commodore.
remember what TSR was standing for?
Terminal to stay resident.
Yes. Remember those?
Yes.
Remember Sidekick?
Yes.
So this was the thing back then. You had a program that was able to be run in background, because in DOS you didn't have a background application, so you needed to do something in DOS, and you either could run TSR,
4DOS, PC DOS, or something else.
PC DOS 4DOS, or you could use a DV DeskView X that was able to run both the background applications in different contexts. So you could run something like a BBS, and you could run a multi-node BBS based on major BBS, and this was my first introduction to online communication.
No, that was your first introduction to software piracy, but never mind.
No, to software communication first, because back then my first BBS that I connected to in 1989, I think. 1990.
Again, you're ahead of my schedule,
Yes.
but I wanted to give you a side question on this.
Yes.
Which was the first operating system that had that as standard? Correct answer gets you a cookie.
What is standard?
The capability to do multitasking Windows.
I will go with Gem.
No. We are talking about PC.
Okay.
Which operating system of that era? Coincidentally, it is going to be a topic of one of our future episodes.
I actually don't know what to say.
OS2.
OS2, okay. It could be.
It is.
Because I think that there is a dead race between OS2. DeskView X was available way before the OS2 and way before everything
On
else.
PC?
On a PC, yes.
Okay.
So it was basically a DOS application that was able to do multitasking. It did it in a clumsy way, but it was able to do it.
OS2 was also able to do MS-DOS applications in multiple windows.
Yes,
which was way ahead of its time.
And it was able to do something that I don't think I have ever seen in any other operating system or application. It was able to read the CDs as digital data and then play them back as normal audio. So basically, it was ripping the CD in real time and then interpreting this as audio.
This is something that was introduced in the PC world in general, in Windows as well, way later. Because we used to have those cables that we connected CD-ROMs with audio cables to the sound card, which was the way in which that worked back then. But afterwards, it was all in the digital realm. Okay.
I must make a confession. I think I used the CD-ROM this way, an old Plexter, a couple of years ago.
I'm still using it that way.
Because I had it connected to my amplifier back home. So I was basically using you remember the old external Plexters that had
like rounded.
Yes, and they have the audio out cables.
I had 2 or 3 of those.
So I actually used this a couple of years ago. It is a piece of hardware probably 20 years old.
More. And I used it last week, but in an internal Plexter. Okay. Same thing. Actually, on a little bit broader topic of how this, let's say, thing with me and computers came to be, because you talked about it as well. Basically, this was my introduction to computing in a couple of steps. The first one was the Amstrad thing. The second was the XT, which firmly brought me into the world of PC, just like you, because after PC happened in our lives, there wasn't all that much else, realistically, for a long period of time, even till this day. My third introduction to computing was the eternal war between HP and the Texas Instruments calculators.
Okay.
Because I started using HP's 48SX that my brother used to use because he went to mathematical gymnasium or whatever it was called. When you finished that, he went to medical school, didn't need that anymore. I started using it at the beginning of my high school. And I already started RPN and programming in HP way back then. So that was my kind of like third introduction to computing in different ways, because Amstrad and PC had nothing in common.
I'm going to say that my first thing that I must say about my introduction to anything connected to IT was basically directly connected to things that weren't working. Basically, when I got my Spectrum, I didn't have a tape. So I had to try and do something with my newly
My
bought.
tape on my Amstrad didn't work most of the time, just like for everybody else as well.
Yes. So
Load error
I had
A,
to do
load
it.
error B, load
When
error
I
C.
got my XT, there were basically 0 games. Back way then, I had an Alicat game that was for IBM clones. I had
And Nibbles.
Soppit 2.
Nibbles.
Nibbles,
Basic.
yes, Nibbles in Basic, and that was it. When I got my first set of Linux disks, because I was installing my first Linux from floppy drives,
Me too.
my X set wasn't working, so I didn't get any graphical interface because it was broken, so I had to use the terminal.
Which leads us to this day.
So basically, what is my life has been a series of failures that I had to contend with, and then work around by teaching myself how to work around them.
You want to tell me that basically your life has been engineering?
Yes, yes.
That's the way I look at it. Every single obstacle that you met, you had to solve the problem. You had no documentation, so you had to tinker, just like me.
So let's start with one thing. How did you first connect to the internet?
That was actually way later. I wanted to just mention one more thing.
Yes.
My first introduction to Commodore 64. I wanted to just mention that actually, because the friend that I was, my best friend in the primary school had it, but we never played it. My first gaming on Commodore 64 happened in high school.
Okay.
Because my friend had it, and we spent incredible amount of time every single day playing First Strike. It's a game with, let's say, plane.
Okay.
Let's say.
Okay.
And we spent better part of the next 2 years when we started playing that, just playing that every single time that we could. Just wanted to add that because I did play on Commodore 64, but I never had it until recently when somebody gave me one for my birthday.
I'm going to just go with I didn't have Commodore, but I didn't have an Amiga. But
That's unfortunate.
But I was playing a lot on Amigas and Commodores because my friends and my neighbors had them. So we were basically, especially over the summer, we were basically glued to the screen, and we were playing either. When we started in Commodore, I think we played Carrier Command. We played Carrier Command is still available for the PC, so there is a remake of it. We played what was on the Commodore.
Ghost and Goblins was one of the most
and
popular.
Goblins,
Golden Exe.
Mission Impossible.
Golden Exe.
Yes. So Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
The one that had a screen that was digitized, so it was a big thing to
No.
do. There was. I played a lot of games. I had a neighbor at my summer house during the summer. I had a neighbor who had a Commodore with the floppy drive, so we were playing a lot of adventures, LucasArts, Maniac Mansion, and Zack McCrack and whatever.
You reminded me of something.
Yes.
But continue, I have to say something.
Okay,
else.
so it was back then, and then later I played an enormous amount of Lemmings on the Amiga.
Yeah, I know that for a fact.
Because
you
I had
mentioned
because I had a friend and we were playing for months probably every weekday in the evening after we had to go to sleep. We basically met at his place because he was 2 houses from me, and then we played until late in the evening, and then we went home to sleep.
I want to add 2 things. A person who you know, actually, the drummer from my band.
Okay.
He used to have Amiga.
Okay.
I had a chance to play with that a little bit, but not in terms of gaming. We were more into music then, because Amiga and mods, it's a story for the ages.
Yes.
Don't want to go into that right now, not because I don't want to. It's just something that I need to brush up my skills on, because I haven't used it a lot. But I do have, actually, we have a mutual friend who was heavily into that when we were back in college. Let's not discuss this right now. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when I started going to high school, one of my side hustles, let's say, because I already started working in high school, semi-jobs for pocket money. We had a software pirate in our neighborhood, and
let's not call them pirates. Back way then they were called software exchange, software enablers.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. Actually, he had a very good computer. Actually, 2 of them, and the CD burner, external SCSI, blah blah blah. Never mind. But we used to spend So he worked nights. He slept over the day and always started working late in the afternoon. That's when I came in, and we played incredible amount of Command and Conquer.
Yes.
But over a parallel cable, like network.
Yes, back way then when parallel cable was
When we were Plipping.
and Laplink was the king of the transfer.
Or Plip and Linux.
Yes.
Plip drivers. Yeah.
And I must say that I had a couple of friends like those also that had a lot of games available. Let's call them there.
I literally bought one game from that guy.
Okay, but it was back way then when software piracy was not something that was considered a problem. In the 80s, especially in the 80s, software piracy was something that was all over the media landscape.
It was in the commercials in the magazines.
It was not only in the commercials and magazines. You could actually grab software off the radio waves. So
I remember that.
Radio 101 in Zagreb was playing
C64 or Amstrad games,
C64
something.
and Spectrum games somewhere during the night. So you could actually tune in during the night,
I remember.
record the program and got a game or got something as an audio recording. So it was another time when it comes to computing, because computing was not considered something of any essence. It was not like you were stealing something.
Yeah, it was way different then.
Yes.
Which brings us to the 90s. And to answer your question before you start, because I'm done for the time being, my first PC after XT, coincidentally, was IBM-based, IBM CPU-based DX4 120 486 machine.
Okay. Because
Now
my first machine was 486, and I think it was DX33.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
It was either DX33 or
it could-
SX25.
It could be DX33 or it could be DX50. If I don't...
That was DX2 then.
Yes, so I don't remember correctly if which one was the first, but I remember that I got a lot of floppies, and I got the first game I played on it was something for LucasArts, because it had a VGA.
I know which game.
And I got, I think it was Indiana Jones, but
No.
I think it was Indiana Jones.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But the thing that I actually remember is that it had a VGA monitor. So
I had
amazing.
Samsung SyncMaster 17 GLS.
I had a Sony Trinitron. It was the smallest one, and it was.
It was still Trinitron, you bastard.
Yes. It's still alive, working.
I'm sure.
Because okay,
Tech hoarder.
yes, but there is something about the CRT monitors.
There absolutely is.
There is. So
I'm missing my Saba TV that I used to have. The cathode one. I'm missing it a lot because the colors on that were incredible.
if anybody still made a decent CRT, because you can buy CRTs
Secondhand.
still secondhand, you can still buy them, but they are basically crappy. If somebody made a decent CRT, I would buy it. The problem is there is not a single problem. There is a couple of thousands of problems with CRT problem monitors right now, but there is something about the image. But anyways, I got a VGA, and the thing that I got.
The Gauss.
Okay, the boing. Okay, but the other thing is that what I did have and what I got with my PC was a 2400 BPS modem. So I got my
Lucky man.
first integrated modem. I honestly don't know why, because
Okay.
I didn't know what the modem was. But at the actual point in time when I got my PC, a guy who was selling it to my father said, "You are going to need this in the near future because this is the future." So
And he was right.
Yes, but he didn't understand what he was trying to do, and neither did I, or neither did my father.
You want to tell me that you didn't know ATX, X3, M3, M0, X0?
Later, I was able to actually discern what is going to happen with my line just by listening to the
Correct.
to the sounds.
Same
But okay, and you also get.
I never disabled the sound on the modem because I found it to be something.
I found it to be something. This is the other one thing, and the other thing was that since we were using the modems way back then, when basically you didn't pay your bill by the minute, you paid the bill by the number
impulse.
of calls. No, by the number of calls.
Number of calls.
Yes,
Okay.
in the 80s, late 80s, start of the 90s, after 10 o'clock in the evening, basically one call was one impulse. So you could connect.
Later they switched it to 6, 12, 24.
Yes, but
Then 3, 4, 6.
Yes, but the idea was that once you wanted to connect to the BBS, you started connecting
2 hours ahead of time.
No, 5 minutes to 10, because you wanted to be connected at 10 o'clock, because all the BBSs has limited time of limited amount of incoming lines.
So you are bringing charges to your bill because you are calling 5 minutes ahead of time.
Yes, but I was just connecting 5 minutes before everybody else, and then I was staying connected for 2 hours.
Okay.
And I got hooked on BBS chats, and I got hooked on BBS doors, if you remember those.
Yes. My DX4 was important for me for 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is that the CPU was basically useless. Although it was DX4 100, it was not very fast. The second thing, with that computer, that was my introduction to SCSI. Because with that computer, I got a Yamaha CDR 102, which was SCSI-based burner with the caddy, which to this day I cannot stand, but it is what it is.
Okay.
And on top of all of that, it was the first computer which I managed to wipe by trying to dual boot Windows and Linux. That was my first computer where I installed Linux in 1996.
Okay.
Very early, like January or February 1996.
Okay, but this is a common thing.
Yeah, you have to break it.
Because you didn't have any slightest idea what you were doing.
No.
And something happened, and then you broke your PC.
It's like where 40 disks, 3 of them don't work.
Yes.
Go back to college, download again.
Yes, download them and get the new ones. Get the new floppies. So you had to get the new floppies from somewhere. Floppies were expensive.
Oh, yes.
You had your set of floppies, and then you were using them until they were out. But the other thing that I wanted to also mention is that one of the things that happened way back then in 93, 94, when I was starting with Linux, basically there was no Google. There was no documentation. The only documentation that you got was first...
Minus help and man. Even
Man.
that was sketchy.
Okay, man was the best documentation that you get, but the problem was that you didn't know where to look. Because there was no... Right now, when you're trying to search for a topic, when you Google something, even if you don't find the exact information that you're looking for, you are going to find the idea of what you're trying to look for. So you're going to find either a name of the program, a name of the standard, something that is going to connect you to the actual topic. Back way then, you didn't know where to search. When you were connecting to the internet, you were able to use Archie and anonymous. Go for an anonymous FTP. Because back way then, people were allowing anonymous connections to their servers.
They still do.
Okay.
But back in those days, FTP was the vast majority of the overall volume of internet traffic.
Yes, because Archie was basically you searching for the files, and then FTP
Downloading
was the way you
FTP.
downloading them. Yes. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is when I got my first Slackware, I had absolutely no idea how to use my modem under the Linux. Because if you remember... Not Minicom. If you wanted to connect your PC to the internet, you had to use Slip.
Yes, I remember.
So Slip was
dip.
serial line over IP. So basically, you got connected to the internet by using a serial line, so your modem. So you had to make a connection and then connect to the internet, get an address, and then actually be a server on the internet.
Okay.
And I had no idea what I was doing. I copied the config file. I went to the local university computing center. I got a sketchy file that was basically what I didn't know what any line meant. I just typed it over, started it, it worked, and then I said, okay, now what happens?
What now?
Because when you are on a Linux box, even today, you take your internet connection for granted. But once you're connected, you need to do something. And imagine being a young guy who is connected to something that he doesn't understand in a way that he doesn't understand. And now you have just a blinking cursor and nothing is happening.
I wanted to add, actually, let's say, 2 positive things that came out of me using that DX4 computer. Although annoying, the Yamaha thingy with caddy burner. It was annoying because you could burn one one CD, sorry, for roughly 45 minutes. And after that, you needed to let it go, like let it shut down the computer for at least 15 minutes to cool down.
Yes.
But I learned a lot about the CD standards, the Joliets, the CD text, the CDI.
This was the only way to
Red Book
to be
blah, blah.
able to create a CD that would
ISO,
be readable by somebody.
MK, ISO, FS, blah blah. Those commands. That's all a part of that. So I learned a lot by using that, by trying to use it in a sense. And the second thing was way back then, both of us were active in the local Linux user group, Hulk.
Yes.
And I remember a couple of computer fairs in our Zagreb fair. I burned dozens and dozens and dozens of Linux distribution CDs. I've spent gazillion hours doing that.
I was hanging out with guys who were working with Walnut CD, if you remember those.
Yes.
Walnut Creek CD. And we got our first Slackware. I still have it. I got my first Slackware from them, my first CD-based Slackware. So it was an amazing kit that had 4 CDs of
Extras.
So basically extra access and everything else that was downloadable in any way or form for the Linux. So it was a fun way to experiment, but what I didn't have is enough space on the disk.
Of course.
Because my problem was that back way then you could easily have a hard disk that was 10 times smaller than the CD.
Yes. Yes.
Or 20 times smaller than the CD.
Correct. One other or a couple of more things that kind of spring to mind. For our listeners slash viewers who haven't had the chance to use those Linux old distributions, which you don't have to, of course, I very much remember installing my first Slackware. The text-based menus, A disks, AP disks, D disk, G disks, X disks, XA disks, and whatnots.
And I'm promising myself that I'm going to be using this emulation here, so PCM. I'm going to use it to install
Slackware 1.
To deploy Slackware 101 and try to start it from the disks and try to install it in order. But I ran into the first problem. My first problem is finding a way to boot from image that is able to be read by the emulator. So I'm going to need to solve this. And I'm going to do it. I don't have the time, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I wanted to add something else. It's kind of significant in other ways. So DX4, my dad got me that in 1996. Coincidentally, that's the year when we met.
Okay, could be.
No, it is.
Okay,
I know that for a fact.
I must say I'm sketchy about the years.
I'm not.
I'm a guy who basically knows that I know you for quite a long time, and that's it. I know where I know you from, and basically everything else in the midst of the past, and I'm going to
in the mist. That's good.
Yes, and this is going to be
you are going to become our AI for let's say poetry.
Okay, so anyways, my remembering things is sketchy, and the biggest problem is that once I got my 486, I know my next PC was a Pentium. And then I have absolutely no idea what happened back then. Because then I started working with PCs, and then suddenly it became a tool. And I didn't consider which PC I have, because I basically didn't care.
My story is similar and different to that. So if you want to add something, go ahead before I start.
I'm just going to say that first thing that I actually made money on was doing some DTP on Ventura.
Okay.
Back way in 1990 something.
My first job that I got paid for in computers, let's forget about the software thing that I discussed previous, because I was paid in Command and Conquer.
Yes.
My first job was actually during first year of college. I needed to create some horoscopes, fake ones, for
Okay.
documentation reasons. I created a script that scraped the web page with a lot of sentences and then combined them into multiple.
Unlike horoscopes, which are empirically
Not getting into that, but
empirically.
here's the kicker: two things. First, I made incredible amount of money out of
Yes,
that.
I know. Back in the start of the 90s, a lot of people wanted the horoscope. What's going to happen
Actually,
next?
it was because one distributor of horoscopes from a company that was in Germany, blah blah. They needed documentation, so I provided the know-how to do that. Let's call it that way. Again, side hustle. But I made so much money that I was able to go and buy my let's say third PC, which is coming after the one that I want to discuss now, which was SCSI based only.
Yes, and I think that I failed to remember. I failed to mention.
Translation very expensive.
I failed to mention that my first 4086 had the Adaptec 2490. So it
2940.
was. I'm dyslexic with numbers. That's okay.
Yeah.
I don't care. It had a SCSI device, and it conveniently broke down with all my data on it.
Excellent.
And I still miss this disk to this day. I got it revived, but I didn't have the money to pay for the actual data extraction from it.
Do you still have the disk?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
I know where it ended, but I don't have it.
Okay. My next computer was also Pentium. As a reward for me starting finally to do some exams in college, my dad got me a Pentium 2, 266. Not the Deschutes core, it was Klamat core. It was slot 1.
Okay.
That computer was seriously fast. That was completely different to the X4 that I had before that. It was a big improvement in terms of performance, and that's the computer where I really honed my Linux skills, especially in Linux kernel compiling, which I did probably 7 or
Once a
8
day.
to 100 times.
Yes, you had to do it basically once a day because you wanted to tweak something, and every tweak,
Tinkering.
since there was no modules, everything that needs to be changed required to compile. So if you wanted to change...
I had SCSI, that always required a recompile.
Yes, but everything was required to recompile. If you want to change the type of the mouse you're using, recompile.
Correct.
Graphic
Because
card,
back then the
recompile.
kernel wasn't as modular as it is today.
It wasn't modular at all. It was
Okay.
basically a monolith kernel that was interconnected in so many ways
Statically
that
linked, yeah.
yes, that you basically had to, if you changed anything, a mouse recompile, CD-ROM recompile, a network card recompile. You had to recompile for every piece of the hardware.
And actually, that computer brought me back into gaming, which was a problem. Kind of like I got it as a reward because I started studying yet again. But then it led me downward spiral of gaming like crazy. And this was the computer that I used heavily for playing two of my favorite games of all time, which were Full Throttle, as
Yes.
you know, and Dune 2000. And as I told you, but you haven't seen that in action, luckily for you, because you would be bored to death. It's very unhealthy for me to start the Dune 2000 game, like to start the exe file, because that means that for the next 5 days I'm catatonic.
But this is completely fine because for me, the game that does this to me is Civilization.
I know more than a few people who would
Because
go
when
along with that.
what I did a couple of years ago, I decided I'm going to download whatever version, Civilization 5 or 6, whatever. It was not the latest version, it was the version before that.
They did some kind of reissue last year or year before, right?
I'm going to completely ignore this game. It doesn't exist anymore. So what I'm saying is that I got, there was a Steam
Yes.
sale, and I said, okay, anyways, let's see what is happening in the Civilization, how it looks like today. There are some DLCs. There is a lot of added content and so on that you can pay later, and the price was something like $20 or so. So I said, okay, let's go with it. And what happened is that I downloaded the game, I started it, and then suddenly it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was
After catatonic.
I was half a catatonic. It was Saturday, and I needed to do something in the morning, so I haven't slept for this night.
Yeah, for me it was Dune 2000 because I remember, just like it was yesterday, starting playing that game on that computer on Monday and realizing that it was Saturday after that,
I'm
without sleeping.
I'm going to say that I played through the entire Doom when it came out.
Mr. IDKFA?
Yes, so
IDKD.
IDKD. So I played through entire Doom starting on Friday, and then basically I finished it on Saturday, and I was hallucinating monsters.
Same experience.
So this is the only thing that happened to me that was even close to this was when I decided that I'm going to binge watch the West Wing. And then for a couple of weeks after this, I was actually
seeing characters,
yeah. And re-imaging things that were happening in the series.
Actually, from that era, I mentioned Full Throttle, one of my all-time favorite games. I have a couple of friends from my childhood that I'm still very much in contact with through music or just mutual, kind of like friendship being kept alive. My friend got me into that game. He told me, you're going to like this game, which he was absolutely right, because the game is awesome and the music is even better. Probably in my list of games, like from whatever part of history of mankind till today, top 3 game.
I need to also mention one thing. I extremely liked watching demos. And seeing what is happening on demo scene in the 90s and in the start of the 2000s. It started with me learning about what demo scene was. So I saw a couple of things happening on the BBSs, because way back then you got a lot of information to the BBSs. So you didn't get the actual games because you didn't have the speed for the modem to download them. But you got the information about what is happening because there are a lot of text files. It was a different time and place where you could actually get files that were meant for education, and people were trying to describe things. So imagine basically people being, I would call them ode tellers. So they were actually recounting what they saw on somewhere. So you didn't get the actual experience because there was no YouTube, there was no live streaming, there was nothing like this. There
was only Alta Vista.
Yes, you got few grainy pictures, and then you got a written down tale that was describing what was happening somewhere.
Yeah, in meta language, basically.
Yes,
human meta language.
So basically, when I started paying attention to this, the thing that made the most impact on me was getting my Gravis, because I had a Gravis ultrasound.
Yeah,
I was mentioning yesterday.
Today.
Yes, okay, today. As I said, I'm pretty inconsistent with my...
yeah, you don't have RTC.
Yes, I don't care. What is behind it doesn't concern me. So basically, Gravis was the first sound card that sounded good.
Like a sound card.
Yes, because it was completely different from what we have today. I don't think there is a single card that is available on the market right now that is able to do what the Gravis was able to do. Gravis had integrated sample memory. You downloaded the samples into the Gravis, and then the Gravis was playing them out in a way that was written down in modules or... So basically, Gravis was the one playing it. And this enabled your computer that wasn't good enough to have amazing, in quotes, audio and still have a good enough video.
Correct.
So, do you remember the... Now my sclerotic brain is going to give up on me. Wing Commander.
Yes, I do. I played that one. Not a lot, but still.
Yes, it was one of those games that was amazing when we first saw it.
Very popular.
There was this game with the Star Wars. First Star Wars game that had the first cinematic sequence where you had to do something. Yes,
I remember. I don't remember the name, but I played that one as well. It was annoying as hell for me.
Yes, but it was annoying. But at the same time, it was doing something.
I mean, it was annoying because it was super difficult.
It was super difficult, but the reason why it was super difficult is because it didn't have anything other to show other than the cinematic sequence. Basically, the way it was designed, if you remember it, is that the cinematic sequence was played back from the CD.
Yes.
And then the game itself was overlaid over the
Correct.
cinematic sequence. So it was basically just a blown up version of the small games that we played when we were young.
Yeah. Actually, before we continue, what happened to me back then when, after the experience with that Monday to Saturday playing of Dune 2000, I realized that I have a problem.
Okay.
And you usually say that I'm pretty efficient and, that I manage to do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time when I focus, and said that I'm much more focused than you. I'm not saying this to this. These are your words, your quotes. Actually, this is where that started, because I decided to switch my focus from playing a game that I can play all the time to actually go back and start studying. Coincidentally, when I decided that, one of the next things that happened is that our mutual friend slash a person who we know contacted me about starting to work for a IT magazine that you were in charge for better part of 15 years.
Yes.
I started writing for the Linux part of that art for that magazine when I was second year college, I think.
Okay.
So that was right around the time when I got my my Climate Pentium based computer. I remember writing about text mode Linux, writing with our diacritic signs, X windows, how to get our signs there, our characters there, printing in text mode, printing in GUI mode. I remember article I wrote about SLab, an application for music in Linux, very early one, etc., etc. I remember most of the articles that I wrote.
Yeah, yes, I know, because this is the thing that we both did for an amazing...
Hello, Rado. Thank you for that.
Yes, so Rado is the legend.
Yes.
Anyways, I remember going to the magazine somewhere in 1999, I think, and my first column was called Siberia.
I was already writing for them at that time.
Yes, so my first column was called Siberia, and it was basically news grabbed from the internet and then retold for the audience of the magazine. And then later, down the line, I became a hardware editor. Then I became editor-in-chief of a magazine that was dealing with mobile phones, and then I became editor-in-chief of the chip itself, so the main magazine, and I stayed the editor-in-chief
Until it dissolved.
No, it didn't dissolve. It actually exists
As a web, yes.
But it's completely. It's not even a news source anymore.
It is devoid of everything that it used to be.
Yes, and this is something that
I'm saying that saddened, of course. Not to dissonate.
I'm extremely sad because back way then in start of 2000s, both the magazines that you were working for and I was working for were extremely powerful. They made sense. We had amazing leadership, and basically we had something that we don't have today. We had a platform because this platform made sense. Today. I don't know a single medium, I wouldn't call it a magazine, even a single medium that is able to provide this amount of positive energy.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just one more thing to add to this story. When I started writing for what became your future employer,
Yes.
This is actually the first time that I tried to write something in terms of an article, in terms of a review or something. I did actually a couple of reviews of some music-related content as well, like CDs, albums, whatnot, for a website in parallel. But I got my head deep into the idea of IT, and around that time when I started writing for Chip, I also did that project with horoscopes, and I started buying a lot of hardware, etc. And I was just like all consumed with that stuff. I was working as a Linux admin for a couple of companies and IEEE student branch in Zagreb in our college at that time, etc. So this was my introduction to what became the future world of my first real job.
Okay, but this is something that
which is very significant for me.
Yes, but it was significant time for everybody because we were basically finishing college. We were going into what would become first of the many jobs that we did.
I didn't do many jobs. I am not a job switcher or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, but to be completely honest, you became an admin, then you became a journalist, then you became an admin again, and then
Actually, if
you started teaching.
no, it was actually a little bit different to that. You're close, but no juice. I started when I finished college. I went to we had to do military back then, so I went into civil service. After that, I got employed in a company that still exists today, which deals with automotive industry simulations, AVL. I was there for exactly 1 week, not because it was a bad company, it was kick-ass. But I got a phone call from that very same Atari dude that I mentioned earlier. He was like, "I remember you. Do you want to come work for VD, the computer magazine?" And it was kind of like a realization of all of my childhood dreams to do that. I didn't know it at the time, but it's like something pulls you, like gravitational pull to do something. And I accepted that. And for the next 10 years, I was almost completely consumed with that. That was half of my life. But, and here's where the reality differs from your story. In 2005, 2 years into my employment with the video, when I actually resigned, or when I stopped working for them, I took a set of Red Hat courses, certified, and right after that, our today's colleague and our used to be colleague who left the company a couple of months ago asked me if I wanted to be a trainer. So it was very quickly after that. And I started right away and never stopped.
Yes, it was different for me because I was both the administrator for a lot of companies. At the same time, when I was working with the publishing company, so for the magazine, because I couldn't decide what I'm going to do. I didn't.
It's excellent that you didn't. I did the same thing.
Yes, and I think this is one of the biggest things that helped me, because when you are undecided and you are able to,
if you can pull it off multiple things at the same time, you should.
Yes, basically, what you are stuck with then is that you have a choice. And this choice has helped me a lot because, as you said, I was always being pulled. Today, you asked me to provide a CV. Mm-hmm. There is a funny thing about my CV is because I don't need my CV. The last time I needed my CV was for some project, and this is for another project. But I never got a job
out of a CV. Me neither.
Because nobody wanted to see what I had to say because they already saw what I'm able to do. Mm-hmm. So nobody was caring what my paper certification is. Mm-hmm. They just wanted to see me doing what they were trying to accomplish. So I was happy to be, I was lucky to be working for a lot of companies that needed my significantly different set of skills than the other people they had available.
Hence my reason why I kind of semi-forced you to go into certification.
Yes, I know.
Not because I think that certification is the be-all, end-all of everything, but it helps both you and me and our company in certain areas of our business. And it was no effort for you. Yes. Almost no effort, because
yes.
30 years you've been doing that, so if you cannot do a certification...
Yes, I think that...
it would be pretty weird.
Yes, okay. So I must say that now Red Hat certification is a hell of a lot more complicated than it was before.
That's good.
Yes, it is good, but it is more complicated.
No, you're wrong.
You could pull it off.
One exam is more difficult.
Yes.
But this change, the engineering exam, Ansible exam that you're discussing, you have no idea what all the Red Hat exams looked like. Trust me, they were much more difficult.
Okay, but anyways, you could pull them off if you were fluent in the general Linux administration.
Yes.
Now, in order to pull this exam off, you need to be actually inside Ansible and understand Ansible. And this is not something that is necessarily part of everyday job for Linux admin.
So we cannot comment on these exams. Me as an examiner, you
as
an NDA signer. But what we can say, and this is what I always openly say to the students that come to my Red Hat classes, there is a difference between the system administrator exam, which is about general knowledge, and the engineering level exam, It always was like that. Engineering exam was never about knowledge. It was always about routine.
Yes, I know, but
There's a big difference
yes,
between
but
those two things.
the only thing that I'm a little bit bothered about the exam is that it is much more concentrated on a single topic.
Okay.
But if you are able to pass it, however you pass it, you are actually proving that you know the thing. There is no way to pass this exam if you don't understand how Ansible works. So this is what I like about Red Hat exams.
Me too. Always have, always will.
If somebody passes the exam,
You know that he or she
I
knows.
I know that I don't need to talk about the things that he passed, because this is just a given. If
It is.
There is no brain dumps. There is no way for you to solve the exam on your own if you don't understand what you're doing.
Okay, let's go back from the tangent.
Okay.
After I got my Pentium, this was the first time that, because of the job that I was doing with horoscopes and some other side gigs that I did, I also got some extra money, and I bought myself my third synthesizer back then. The first one was something that my father gave me when I finished music high school.
Okay.
The second one I got from partially from my employer, as I used to work in a music shop. And the third one I bought to myself, and then I realized that it is actually something that's sitting on the floor collecting dust, and I exchanged that for a Dell Pentium 3 laptop, which was a hell of a good deal for me, both in terms of money difference and in terms of the value of the actual device that I got, because I got a kick-ass Dell laptop with a docking station, and that was my computer that I used to upskill on many of the Windows thingies. I used to run Windows 2000 that for years.
Yes,
because the client Windows were, let's say, less than reliable.
I would call two things that need to be pointed out right now. First thing is that back way then, both you and me were running, more than likely it would be that we would be running Windows NT, or even Windows NT 3.5, and then later Windows 2000 and 2003, because they were much more reliable, and they were much easier to keep running. Because Windows 95, Windows 98, whatever, kept crashing, had a couple of problems, had a number of problems with drivers, with audio, with whatever, and you lost some ability of running different applications, but at the same time you got stability. So if you wanted to do something, this was actually doable, and it was running. There were no intermittent crashes that were completely normal in the desktop version. And the other thing, the other thing is that you had to have a device to run Windows on, because there were no virtualization
back then,
option available.
That was 2003-04.
Yes, there were a couple of virtualization options available, yes, but you couldn't run them on the hardware that you were. They required enterprise hardware,
kind of like emulated methodology.
Yes.
Actually, you reminded me of more than a few things actually from that era. Windows 95, just to go there for a second. Windows 95 is, I'm going to openly say that, my favorite OS of all time, bar none. I'm going to tell you why. Because, and I know that you're going to be able to relate to this, but maybe you're going to have a different take. It was my favorite OS back then, and it is still today, because I had no problems reinstalling it 3 times a week.
Okay.
You remember that time?
Yes.
When the OSR2 came out, the second version, which introduced the Croatian, keyboard characters, whatnot, etc. That is by far my favorite OS of all time, followed by Windows 98 SE.
My favorite OS of all time is probably OS2 Warp.
We are going to talk about that, because that's my close third.
But let's now try to wrap this thing up.
Oh, we have more things to say.
Yes, but we are going to leave this for the next episode.
No, not about this. We have a couple of things to wrap up, but there are a couple of things that you probably want to say about your computers as well. Before we do, you said that you don't remember which computers you had after the last one.
Yes, because my problem was that
utilitarian devices.
So my biggest problem is that when I got older, when I got some cash flow going, and when I was able to work for the computers that I got, I basically did two things. First, I provided myself with enough computers to be able to do my work, and then I kept. Basically, when I was working in the magazine, you know that when you know the problem with working with the hardware part of the magazine, we got a lot of hardware.
My employer didn't give me any of that, which I had no problem with.
But I didn't get the hardware for myself. But you got to use it. So I got used to using new hardware. I was using it in the magazine because a long time ago, I decided that I don't need another computer at home. And when I had...
Unlike now, of course.
No, the problem is that now I don't have a job where my everyday computers are going to be changed every day. And now I need a better computer at home because this is where I work.
Okay.
And back way then, I had a lousy computer at home.
And a good one at work.
And I had 7, 8, 9 computers at work that I could use at any given moment. So I didn't care because I was sleeping at home and I was working in the office. Yep. And I was able to pull everything off on different computers. So I didn't care about the computers back then. I started caring when I decided I'm going to leave the magazine business and the journalism and everything else, and I'm going to orient myself towards being an administrator full time. So then I realized that I needed computers at home because I needed to experiment, I needed to work, and so on. So there is a large gap where I didn't care which computer I had.
Because you already had everything that you needed.
Yes.
It was very similar to me, but after I left the magazine, when I started my own website, still exists today, but we are not updating it, have it for a decade probably. We might reconsider that. Actually, back then, I got a lot of hardware specifically for myself, because most of the hardware that got into our hands to review stayed with us, and specifically they were named at me, aimed at me.
Yes.
I had all of the CPUs of all of the generations of every single, AMD/Intel platform up to a point with AMD, and Intel kept sending those up to the very end when I stopped working. With NVIDIA, I always had an excellent relationship, still do, to this day, I'd say. And they kept providing me with everything that I needed ever, for which I was always very grateful, and I was always fair to them. That's what I wanted to do. But I always cared about what I have, not for the public appearance, Instagram screenshot, selfie reasons, but because of the fact that I realized as I was working with the magazine, and after that, when I started working for myself, that just like you said, computers are tools, correct? But also there are good and bad tools. And for me, having a very slow computer to do the work is a problem. Specifically, for example, a year and a half ago, I got that 3900K, which I used to do video editing for our podcast, etc. I did a couple of episodes on my computer in the office. I wanted to take my fist and my foot and a baseball bat and everything and just smash that computer, how slow it is. It's a force of habit.
Yes, it's something that is also my problem, because at home I don't have the latest generation of I have a 380...
2-gen old Ryzen.
2-gen old Ryzen, the 380X Ryzen. But what I have is 64 gigs of RAM, and I have a decent graphic card. So I'm able to run both visualization and everything else that I need, if I need it. I have enough cores to be able to run whatever needs. So
now you have dozens of laptops, just like me.
Yes, but at the same time, I have a couple of laptops, couple of Macs, a couple of
racks of servers that you can always use for virtual machines.
Yes, so a couple of computers that were basically were dropped on me for no particular reason, and I had to have them. And but at the same time, both you and me, we haven't kept up with using the newest laptops.
Yes. I do that mostly with Macs, but not with PCs.
Yes. So, but we are not up to date with everything, because we started slowing down as the normal PC power kept basically being steady enough so that it is usable. The tools are usable.
There haven't been so much heavy improvements, let's say, on the CPU side for many generations. So,
but there were improvements, but we didn't care about those because there were no demands on the software side.
Correct.
You can work with this is 6 generations old laptop. What I need to do can be done with this laptop. I'm not
99% of your work is doable with that laptop. I agree with you completely.
So I don't see any point in wasting money on it when I could be wasting money on other stuff.
On stupid controllers that you buy from whatever.
Yes,
Alibaba or whatever.
Okay.
Just a random thing, first thing that came to mind. It's not about Alibaba. It's about you buying cheap stuff.
Yes.
Behringer, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's wrap this up. I just wanted to kind of like wrap this up in 2 parts. The first part is going to be our kind of like summarization of those changes that happened from the from our first computers all the way to today. I have 3 points to make there. I don't know how many you have. And then we're going to close the session in, let's say, our less than normal way.
Okay.
So for me, when I look through the years from my first computer, which was Amstrad, all the way to today, when I have this one and 4 Macs and 3900K and whatever, there are 3 main components, 3 things that significantly changed from my perspective of being a user of a computer. So with each new generation of computer, what's clear as day, we got new, let's say, more CPU power, more memory, although memory is probably the component that slows the computers most down, but that's a topic for another day. From having the first PC with 20 megabytes of disk up to today when I have computers that at least have 6, 7, 8, 12, 10 terabytes of something, where most of it in NVMe. My biggest, let's say, improvement came with the SSDs for my workflow and for
everybody, basically
well,
for everybody else. Yes,
so that's the first thing. The second thing is software part. I started with Amstrad OS was called AMS-DOS, Amstrad OS. From that to Windows 3 to Windows 3.11 to Windows 95, 98, Millennium, blah, 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 blah. You can clearly see the progress of the OS part, and don't get me started on applications. Applications are probably the most developed part of that. And the third part of that, which I think is the most significant for us, is the part of all of that being connected to the internet. That's what changed everything.
I think that two things were important for me. One is the internet, because the internet is not only the connection of the things, but also connection of the knowledge. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that are available now is something that is completely was completely unheard of before the internet came on.
Unobtainium.
And the other thing is that virtualization was a big part of what we can do today, because you can use your tool, whatever the tool is, for your everyday work. You have everything set up, and if you need to test something or work on something, you can quickly spin up a virtual machine or two, or even a Docker or two, and create something that is going to be useful to you basically in a couple of minutes. So you can not only learn by reading, you can also learn by doing and learn by trying it out on a completely safe environment that wouldn't be possible a couple of years ago.
Correct.
Okay, we are lucky that we have you and your environment here in the office.
Okay.
But for a normal person, okay, we are not normal persons, but for a normal person that has a couple of PCs at home.
Who says that normal person has a couple of PCs at home?
Okay, but somebody who is working in IT probably has a couple of PCs at home.
So that's your normal person.
It is not because who is going to run simulations on the home environment, but except people who are doing it. But creating a home lab, that the thing that is now something that is normal or considered a hip, you have to have your home lab.
You're a hipster, yeah.
Then you have a home lab,
and you have your iPhone.
Yeah, no. But I don't have my home lab. I just improvise along the way. Yes. But people buy special equipment for the home lab. They want to have the fastest networking for the home lab. They want to have Cisco for the home lab. But
Oh, yes.
if you disregard those people, a normal person who wants to do something can do it for an amount of money that would probably be something that you could buy a single hard disk a couple of years ago.
Correct.
You can get a virtualization environment that is going to get
So
you.
pricing component of that also.
Yes.
That changed significantly. You're
Yes.
completely correct.
So basically, if I get and I can get a laptop like this for something like 200 euros or something, because this one is broken in cosmetical way. So, but it is broken. It's
It's
considered broken.
broken in a cosmetic way by his foot.
Okay, but this one is actually was broken by me, but it is worth around 200 euros right now. I can buy a couple of these, and I can create a pretty decent environment, even on this laptop that was never meant to be run a visualization environment. So I can do a decent
As long as you
job.
have enough memory and fast disk, it's okay.
Yes, but I can do it. Although this wasn't never meant to run this.
No.
And then, if I want to create an environment that's actually going to be a visualization environment, I can do it easily for a silly amount of money.
Okay.
So,
This-
internet and visualization is something that I'm most happy with, and with tinkering.
Actually, this has been quite a cleansing experience because I realized that we have much more in common than I thought, which is always good to know.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So that's a wrap on this episode of That IT Show podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then,
See you.
bye.